The African Continent Free Trade Area modalities for Category C products, the East African Community member states are supposed to liberalize only 3% of their tariff lines, but they are not supposed to exceed 10% of the imported products from other African countries. For the modalities of Category B products which are sensitive, the East African member states are supposed to liberalize 7%, and this has brought some sort of disagreements between the East African Community member states. It's because of this basis that the East African Community Private Sector Consultative Meeting is in Uganda here to come up with outstanding tariff lines.
We are happy as the private sector to be holding these conversations, discussions around the Category B and C tariff lines to be implemented under the AFCFTA operationalization. What's extremely important for us today is that as the private sector, we're having this conversation ahead of the governments, the partner states, meeting to finalize. And we are finally taking that position that should lead integration, not just in East Africa, but across Africa. Because you know, the aspiration of the East African community is for integration to be private sector-led and people-based. So it's fantastic that the private sector is sitting ahead of the governments.
Now, because this is of interest to the private sector, we thought it's better for the private sector to come, look the outstanding tariff lines where the partner states have failed to agree, because you find some 4 countries have agreed, maybe one have not agreed, in the other tariff line 3 countries have agreed, 2 have not agreed so far. So the private sector will sit here for 2 days, looking the outstanding tariff lines, which are supposed actually either to go to sensitive product or exclusion list, and recommended those products to be actually put in the sensitives or in the exclusion list.
In 19th February 2022, the East African Community Partner States adopted the East African Community Tariff Offer for Category A products amounting to 90.2%. 5,129 tariff offer lines out of the total 5,688 lines were to be liberalized in 10 years after the start of trading under the African Continent Free Trade Area. An East African extraordinary meeting of the Sectoral Council on Trade, Industry, Finance and Investment also directed the EAC Secretariat to convene an expert meeting in 2022 to consider categories of B and C of the East African tariff offer. However, there has been some lack of information on which products lay under which category. Next week, the East African member states are going to meet in Bujumbura to have a regional voice on which kind of products are sensitive and which one are not going to be traded.
The private sector, before the EAC partner states meeting, which is happening in Bujumbura next week, is to have this regional voice of which kind of products the private sector itself, because it's private sector which trades, so which kind of products are going to be put under the list of sensitive products and which products are going to be put under those which are not going to be traded. So far, there has been progress by the partner states, but there are still contentious items, and that is why the permanent secretaries are meeting next week in Burundi to finalize this process.
You see, right now, as the East African community, we have elevated conversations from national level to East African. And from East African, we are going Africa-wide.
By February 2022, the African Continent Free Trade Area so far verified 29 tariff offers to ensure that they meet the modalities, which was anticipated to increase to 34 once the East African Community Partner States are verified. According to records, the verification of the tariff offers ensured the African Continent Free Trade member states to meet the minimum requirements to start trading under the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Pedson Mumbere, Smart24 TV, Business Today.